I feel like sometimes I just like beat them up and then they don't. I'm like, why are the leaves not as nice? And then it's like, oh, I should have just taken better care of the. That should be fine there.
Ooh, this leaf.
Oh yeah, that's like a Tim Anderson. So Tim Anderson is, I don't know if you know Tim Anderson and stuff. He passed away a few years back. He's a famous like bench hybridizer of anthuriums in like the 90s and 2000s. He's the one who, the original red crystallinum ascends from him, and the whole line of all these sports he had. Mm-hmm. I have a few of them actually. So long velvet, or this like really cool like long shaped anthurium he hybridized.
What do you think about this trend of these red veined crystallinum stuff?
So I collect them. I have a lot of hardened leaf. I'm trying to find a new leaf one. This is probably the newest leaf. Let's see if I can get this guy here. This is a newer leaf here. You can see the coloration here.
Yeah, these really seem to speak to you.
I like them a lot. Yeah. I think the reason, a couple reasons. This red crystallinum, I got that. You know what's interesting? I think people have a lot of stories with when they get plants, and I got that NSC red crystallinum around when my undergraduate mentor my photography mentor passed away. So he died during the pandemic. He died of cancer, but I mean he couldn't get treatment. It was really sad. I was pretty bummed out about it, and I got that plant. I don't like spending a ton of money on plants generally. Just kind of. Right. But that was an auction plant, and it was a really nice one. I remember seeing it, had a gorgeous red leaf on it, and I just was like, it was one of those things where my advisor, he had Chris Killip, he used to wear red socks to work all the time. Like, so this was a thing he did as a professor. He wore red dress socks. That's all he did. And so red just reminded me of him, and I just said, why not? It's like, I'm feeling really sad, right. Let me get a plant to remember him by. And I think that was like one of the first red plants I got, and I think because there's this association with him and when he passed away, and he was like the first person who got me into photography. It's kind of why I'm photographing my plants. I'm photographing them as a sort of project on like loss and memory and what plants mean. So a lot of these plants do have a very deep story to them, like this one. Like, I mean, you can't see the red leaf now, and this one's just, it's so slow. It's like such a slow growing plant, but another one will come in, and it'll be really nice when it does. And it's the sort of famous like NSC red crystallinum. But I mean, these are from some of them from Tazula, and some of them are from Scott Cohen. The Fairchild, that one right there. And in general, people don't really realize this, but like red leaves just happen with a lot of anthuriums. You don't need like a special red. You don't need like the. It's one of those things that I've learned. You've probably learned that too. That red leaves will just
like happen.
Yeah. Let's see if this one's. I'm curious. So curious about this guy. Oh yeah, so this one, so not even red, but let me show you, like one of the other things I really, really love about these plants is they also, not necessarily with red, but with other colors. So, like this is just like the color on it when it comes out, it's just this beautiful like olive tan color. This one's from Dr. Block, so this is like of his famous. I mean, Dr. Block is like the other famous like breeder of Crystallina magnificum hybrids, and this is one of his magnificum crystallinums that I have. I have way too many plants actually from that. I should downsize a bit.
I think it's really impressive that you sort of know the stories and the origins. It makes your collection and your plants more meaningful in a deeper sense than others who don't know the origins and the stories.
I try to ask a lot of questions on them, and I try to get as much of a background on them. I don't actually buy a lot in random purges. Like I think there's only a few purges I'll buy stuff from, but usually it's because it's from somebody that I can talk to about where a plant comes from.
Right.
But mostly I get a lot of stuff from different, just very established vendors, because they're more willing to kind of tell you this is where the plant comes from, and this is, you know, the story behind it. You know, he's super swamped now, but like Jay Vanini is fantastic with that.
Right.
He'll tell me everything
Right.
about where a plant comes from. So like my Dressleri comes from him. This is like, you know, he like sent me this whole paragraph about like the plants. These are from like Australia. They're like the dark form seeds they got from. He just sent me this whole paragraph about like where those come from. This one, you know, was from him, as I mentioned. This Pseudoparasitica is from him too, but that one's from Australia apparently too. And then, you know, he's got these like really cool pap hybrids as well. You know, he does his like, not hybrids, but just, you know, he's got his like original. This is his Fort Sherman and you know, Ralph Lyman cross. It's growing bigger, and
Ooh, very nice.
yeah, I mean, it's a nice little pap that needs a little water, I think. But I mean, I think what's nice when you buy from someone like that is just the story, that the passion that he has for plants. You know, the Dressleri I got from him, and he sent me photos of it when it was like a little seedling. It was like, you know, it's will be months before it gets bigger. But being able to hear those stories is like far more meaningful for me than, and growing plants out too. Like this here, this is like, you know, the sort of famous Enid's like green X dark form, you know, that she has on her, you know, whatever. It's like this big when I got it, you know, and I just grew it out. You know, I grew it out to be this size, and it's getting bigger. Yeah, I thought about cutting it and like propping it, but then the info came out. So But, you know, growing things out from a tiny little, the Vienorum right there, that giant one, right there, that was from Jay, and it was a tiny little seedling when I got it. Just super small.
Very nice.
I've moved up 2 pots for it. And just how big some of these plants get. That's actually kind of weird when you're moving, is like when you see a plant just blow up in size on you, you get kind of nervous because you're like, how am I going to move this thing?
Oh, this one's really nice.
Oh, yeah, that's the Fairchild X Pap. So it's a Papalinum plus the Fairchild Crystalline cross. This is my another favorite plant, Cunealense. Cuneias, I guess is what they call them, but this is sort of a more mature one, or it's a cutting of one. Mm-hmm. Oh, and then this guy. Oh, so these are the Queen of Hearts. I don't know if you've heard of that one. This is the
Queen of Hearts.
Yep, Queen of Hearts.
I don't think I've heard about this one.
Let me turn on the light real quick. Oh. Yeah, they're on a timer. It's funny because I have the light. It turns off at this time because it cools down the room.
Oh.
So it's Right. But this is the Queen of Hearts. This is from Silver Chrome, Bill Rodolante's family, and it's just this like really interesting anthurium that was a sport basically that came from a batch of some it just like was a random anthurium that emerged. So that's really nice.
Well, do you have any advice for like new plant parents starting out in the hobby now that sort of the availability is higher but the prices are also higher?
Yes. Gosh, a lot of people want to save money on cuttings, but they start with like the most expensive cuttings. So like what I mean by that is like someone will message me and they're like, this is my first like Monstera elbow prop, right? And part of me goes, have you ever propped a regular Monstera? And they're like, no. And what people don't realize is that many of these plants have very similar other plants that you can prop, that basically you can learn from, right? And when you learn how to prop something on something that has less risk, you learn a lot more because you're willing to take a little more chances on something, right? You're more willing to try. And I also think there's like a weird confidence thing where if you have this like $200 to $300 node and that's the only thing you have and you're starting out, you're gonna just like project this anxiety on like the plant.
Right.
And I feel I mean, you can see how many crops I have going here, and you can see how many seedlings I have, and how much I just enjoy growing things from smaller. Not only is it cheaper, but you just learn a lot from it. You learn what works and what doesn't, and
That's very interesting that you bring that up. That you learn more when you're taking risks, taking chances,
Oh, totally,
trying to experiment more with cheaper cuttings.
because what happens when you get when it's your first time and you get like a $200 albo node? You email you DM you try to get as much advice from everybody. Everyone gives you their 2 cents. You don't really know what you're doing,
Right.
and you wind up doing a little bit of everything else, and you wind up actually messing things up more because
Right.
you're just so nervous about it, right? I mean, we've all been there, I guess, right? But like, it's nicer when you don't have that type of pressure on you
Yep.
to be able to just be able to kind of like play around a bit and experiment,
Right.
Right?
I think that like when you get advice and like you said, like everyone has their 2 cents. Adding all the 2 cents together doesn't give you $1.
No, it doesn't. You need one person to tell you what they did and follow that all the way through. What gets me are people who do like a little bit of everything, and then you wind up realizing they kind of just did too much and it didn't help.
Right. A lot of people when they're getting advice, they kind of like try to get everything and then kind of merge it into like a median,
Yes.
right? Like an average
Yeah.
of like, hey, this is what 100 people did. I'm just going to take the average. But it doesn't work that way. You kind of have to be, unfortunately, you kind of have to be a little bit more polarized, and you have to pick a method that sort of works for you and your environment.
Crowdsourcing advice online, meaning like posting like, how do I do this, is less helpful than finding somebody who has done something for a long time and asking them what they do.
Right.
You don't need 100 people telling you 100 things, 95 of which might not really be the best advice. You need one person telling you what their best advice is.
Yeah.
It's also realizing that there are many different methods to grow. And even like humidity wise, I could get away with some of these plants in lower humidity, I know that.
Looking at your setup and all your plants, like you don't have a one answer for what's your soil mixture.
Oh, no.
Right? You don't have your one answer to how much light do you need, how far away, what's your intensity. Like you have things in various different mediums, different light sources. It's like how can there be one answer?
And this is what gets me sometimes with the online stuff when people start saying, no, this is the only way you can do it. It doesn't work when it's this, right? Is for someone like me, I go, well, there's actually a lot of different ways you can do it. And pick the one that you feel most comfortable with.
I feel like the most consistent thing about your soil mix is that they're all inconsistent.
Well, the
principles are the same.
Principles are the same, right?
Right,
so
right.
if you understand the principles of everything, right? So like the fundamentals are really airy, loose, so it doesn't sit in soggy moisture, nutrients, good light, and a general balance of all of these things, your plant will be fine.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like this is a new thing I'm trying. These seedlings are in this like imported substrate mix I'm trying from like the Netherlands. And I'm just trying it, it's like, let's figure this out.
What's so special about this substrate mix?
It has something called hydrofiber plus perlite plus it's a sponge. It feels like a sponge actually.
Oh.
But nothing special really. I just decided to try it.
Yeah.
And let me see how it goes.
Right.
And if it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, right?
Right.
There are some things like I do fall back to like the chunky I call it anthurium mix.
Right.
So, perlite, charcoal bark, orchiata bark.
Mhm.
And you just and only because it allows me to overwater them a little bit. But I'm not gonna like repot every single thing to that. I change up the substrate if there's a problem.
Right.
Like if I see the plant declining, and that's if there's no new growth, if it declines, then you say, all right, try something new. That's the one thing I think trying all these things is good because you realize that if something goes wrong, you've got like a fallback plan, you've got like a backup to
Right. You
fix things.
don't freak out.
Oh, you don't freak out.
Yeah.
I try to remain as calm as I can.
Yeah.
And I think that people just, if they can follow just the basic rules and experiment, right?
Right.
Like, I would get, like, if you haven't done an anthurium before, do not start off with like a $600.
Right. Get like a $30.
Get a $50, yeah,
Yeah.
$50 one. You know, find you know, a local purge one or whatever. Find one that's $50.
Right.
And try that first, right? And then move your way up eventually, but don't start.
There are cheap anthuriums you can get at Home Depot. Was it Podophyllum or something?
You can. So the thing about, you want to actually get something that's close to what you really want later, right? So the reason they're at Home Depot is there are anthuriums that require much less humidity, right? They're not velvety. They have different requirements with this, and that's kind of why I think they're sold at Home Depot, right? But you know, you can find a velvety, like this kind of thing, like this is, you know, $40. This is a $40 Crystalline, you know, from LegendsofMonstera, right?
Right. You can get a cheap one. Right.
You can get a cheap one, and you can find. I mean, I can off that for like the same one as I got it. I don't care as much about that one.
Right.
That one, I mean, I experiment a lot with plants too, so I like to buy things and just sort of play around and guinea pig them a little bit. But